Hello, everyone. So, those of you who know me can ignore this slide. I'm Alex. I am the lead developer of Automate DV. I'm also a senior engineer here at Business Thinking. I've chaired the user group on a regular basis, a lot of last year actually, hoping to do that more. And we've got a podcast. I've hosted that quite a few times now. We talk about all kinds of stuff with my colleague Joe there. You may recognize him if you watch them. Yeah, a lot of the stuff we talk about is it's fun, but it's also educational. So if you haven't seen that, go check that out. Shameless plug. Okay, today I'm going to talk about something a little bit different. Right. So the talk I didn't give today, I was going to talk about something technical. And those of you who know me know that I can talk about testing for hours on end. I can talk about ontologies and data warehousing and all the kinds of things that you can think of. I'll happily talk about all of that. But I realized it's our data community event today, and I want to talk about something a little bit different. And so I'm going to tell a story. There's going to be nothing on the slides, so sit back and listen, and I'm going to tell a story. And if you do want some slides on it, I can put some bullet points together. But yeah. So I did a computer science degree at Royal Holloway. Again, Neil went there. We've got a few people attending there today. I, from a very early age, started off with computers and building them and talking to my friends at school in the playground who could not be less interested about them. I was there, you know, off programming them, building them, doing all kinds of things really. And so I knew very early on, probably from about the age of 8, that I wanted to go into computers, but I didn't ever plan to get into data. That's what I didn't realize yet. Maybe thinking about doing software development, something like that. And I kind of fell into data. So my first job was, I worked at Currys, which for those of you who don't know, is a tech store here in the UK. They sell laptops and fridges and TVs and all kinds of things really. And I stuttered through I was a sales assistant and I'd be selling the laptops. I stuttered through my first customers that day. I couldn't say a thing. I had to have someone, one of my colleagues had to chaperone me and help me through. And that wasn't very fun, that wasn't very good. But what it taught me is that colleague and my colleagues there were able to, they gave me a safety net. They gave me an opportunity to learn. They gave me a safe place to make mistakes, and that was okay. And they taught me it was okay to make mistakes. Fast forward 4 years at the end of my university career, and my supervisor for my dissertation offered me a paid PhD, and I was blown away. I thought, this is amazing. At that point, I'd already been working at Business Thinking about 6 months already, and I'd love to say, oh, I agonized over it for weeks on end, but actually, within a few hours, like, you know what, I'm just going to take the job. I'm just going to stay working at Business Thinking. Best choice I ever made. It's 9 years late, coming up to 9 years later now, in about three months or so. Best choice I ever made. I made the decision, not because it was safer, but because I was learning quicker and in a much better environment, in my opinion. I never really was cut out for academia, with people and in a community. So a few years ago now, about 2 years ago, I was working, and I got an email, personal email, and they said, from my old college that I went to before uni, and they said, oh, we're looking for people to come and talk to the current students, ex-students to come talk to the current students. And I said, okay. And long story short, when I gave that talk, they said, can you give one piece of advice that you'd love to give your past self? And I said, and I regret giving this advice, just be confident. And it was, all these students, and it was a waste really. It's wasted on them because confidence isn't thrust upon you. It's built up over time, and they hadn't started their careers yet, so they hadn't built up that confidence yet. So the advice I'd give today is stay curious. Okay, and actually, what Neil was saying earlier about in our industry, where all these tools and automations, and especially with the advent of AI and all of that kind of stuff, is don't turn your brain off. Stay curious. Keep thinking. That's the advice I give now. So another story. This is a collection of stories. I've made mistakes. I've made some big mistakes in my career. The biggest one, and I've talked about this in a podcast. I'll keep it short. I was testing some code, some SQL code, and it was all working great. It was quite a complex piece of code, and it was working great in UAT, so user acceptance testing, a pre-prod environment. And I thought, that's great. I've tested it. Brilliant. I'll push that to prod. Anyone see where this is going? Pushed it to prod, and the client's systems went down for an entire morning. This was about 8 years ago now, so don't worry, everything's fine. And yeah, biggest mistake I've ever made. But I wasn't told off. I wasn't reprimanded. It was okay. Well, can't undo it now. How do we fix that? How do we make good on this? The way, the best thing to do is own up to the mistakes and make good on it and look to fix it, right? So, and actually my colleague Tim, where are you, Tim? Tim, there you go, Tim. He actually came in, he's the SQL expert in our company. He came in and rescued me. We spent an hour or two working through this problem, quite a gnarly SQL problem. I'm sure he'd be happy to talk to you about it if you're interested. And we deployed the fix, and the client was very happy. And the client was very understanding as well. So that, again, taught me that people are very important. And actually, something I didn't say at the beginning is, we're gonna, one of the reasons I'm not doing a technical talk is because we're gonna spend all day talking about how to build systems. I want to talk about how to build people. What that doesn't change is hard problems are still hard. And things can just be hard, and that's okay. It's okay for things to be hard. And I'm not special for not giving up. The point is that I tried to stay curious just long enough to fix the problem. Okay, if you're just curious one step further, one step more, enough to overcome the problem at hand. So, fast forward to 2 years ago now, 2023, the hardest thing I've ever done in my entire career, and actually this right now is an example of one, public speaking, not even a technical thing. I spoke at the DBT conference 2 years ago, Coalesce in London, and I was up in front of 200 people. And that was, to this day, one of the hardest things the hardest thing I've ever done in my entire career, and actually one of the hardest things I've done in my life. But what helped me there is I had 2 colleagues come along with me, and just before I got on, they were giving me the biggest pep talk I've ever had in my life. They were saying, you know what, Alex, you've got this, you know this, you deserve to be here. I had serious imposter syndrome. I was like, why are there 300 people in this room waiting to talk, wanting to listen to me? And whilst it was the hardest thing I ever did, it was one of the best things I've ever done as well. So let's move on to another story. So what do I do when I'm stuck? Well, a few years ago now, I had a mentee, someone I was mentoring, and they had a tendency to kind of give up as soon as the first or second idea they had didn't work out. And I worked with them for a couple of months, probably more actually, to try and help them overcome this. And what we kind of came to was the phrase, test your assumptions. And again, this comes back to what Neil was saying. What do I mean by that? Well, I've got some good examples, so I'm going to read them off. But basically, yeah, go back to the foundations. Ask yourself, what are we actually trying to achieve? This is what Neil was saying again. What are you assuming isn't negotiable? And what assumption has never been questioned? So, for example, I can give you an example from a client actually. The client was requesting we integrate some data, we ingest some data into a system, and they said, oh, use this API. I was like, okay. And we spent a few hours looking at this API. Turns out it wasn't compatible with the system that we were trying to bring it into, various reasons. And we spent a while on this, and then I realized, well, hang on a second. They're emailing this data out. Can we not, as a workaround, just read the emails just to get the data in? And obviously not the world's most ideal solution, but I went back to them, I just thought I'd ask. They said, yeah, that's great, let's do that instead. And we worked out a better way of doing it later, but it overcame the immediate issue. And that was an assumption that we tested. So anyway, this person I was mentoring, eventually after sort of 3 or 4 times at going through this process, it finally clicked. And to this day, they are, as far as I'm aware, one of the people, they're a very good engineer and they don't give up and they see it through to the end and make sure they get the problem solved. So all of this is to say, let's go back to the start. Community drives growth, and all of the things that I've had to overcome, that has a common theme, which is there's been colleagues, there's been clients, there's been friends, my wife in particular, who has had to put up with late night coding and some stress, and she's been great. All of this is, there's been people there to catch me and push me through every single step of the way, and I wouldn't be here talking in front of you if I hadn't had these people there. So yeah, nobody gets here alone is the message I want to leave with you today. And as you go through the conference, try to be that person who is going to help someone learn, who can be asked a naive question and you can use that opportunity to help that person learn something new. Always be curious, and if you're going to put something into production, please test it at volume first. I'll leave you with that.